we try to put up the most recent version of our webinars onto our YouTube channel, which I'll review at the end of this class, just to make sure they're up to date. So this is how to work with recruiters, or why should you work with recruiters? And so let's get started. So just a quick introduction of myself. Some of you have seen this a million times. So I am a workshop facilitator at the Mass Hire Career Center in Woburn. I was a learning and development professional for many years, which used to be called training and development. And a year and a half or so, I shifted to career coaching and workshop facilitation. I am a licensed professional business coach and life coach. And I did a ton of facilitation in my last job, so it was a good transition. I have been in your shoes. I've been laid off a number of times. I've been asked to leave a couple times, not because I was doing anything wrong. I just didn't have the skills for what they needed me to do. So this has been a really good fit for me, and I really hope that you find a job that's a great fit for you. This is a great job search resource. I'm sorry. I think you have to register, but there's no cost, and there's tons of information about looking for a job on this website. So definitely take a look at that. I always give a plug for our Tailored for Success. It's a little bit like Dress for Success. It is a career closet, women's and men's clothing. You can email this email for an appointment, or you can just drop by Wednesdays from 9 to 12 in Woburn. And I'm sorry, that's a typo. It should be 10 to 12 in Cambridge. They have all kinds of professional clothing, blazers, shirts, ties, pants, skirts for women, accessories. So if you have an interview coming up and you just don't feel like you have appropriate clothes, definitely stop by. And like you can make an appointment if you want someone to kind of style you. But they have lovely, lovely things. They're all nice business clothes. So definitely take advantage of that because, it's expensive to go buy clothes when you're not working. And the other thing is if you need, some clothes for the first week of your new job, that's another option to ask them for that. And they're really nice there. So definitely take advantage. So we're just going to go through a few of the laptop desktop controls. I am not seeing Q&A on my side. So if you are, that's great. I don't know if I'll be able to see that, but if you want to chat with me, please just hit the chat button. You have my email. If you have specific questions, you can email me after the class. And to leave this session is just going to be clicking that red X. Now you're muted. You can't turn on your web camera, and that's really for your privacy. It's one of the rules that they've given us, so we just follow that. To activate closed captioning, you're going to click that little CC button, and you will see whatever I'm saying on your screen. And then if English is not your first language, we have a multitude of languages you can pick from. And then you'll just click the drop down to choose a different language, and everything I say will be in your language. And then for mobile devices, it's going to look a little bit different. You're going to click the three dots on your phone and choose advanced. Chat may not be available. As I said, I'm not seeing a Q&A button, so you might just have to email me if you have a question. And then advanced for the closed captioning. You're just going to click advanced and then WebEx Assistant. Are there any questions on any of this? Okay. I will take that as a no. So, we're going to talk about working with a recruiter. So our goals for today are, really, why should I use a recruiter? And then we'll be talking about how to prepare to work with recruiters, how to follow up with them. And then we always have a nice tips for working with recruiters. Okay, so let's get started with this. So there's three types of recruiters. There's the agency contingency. So this is a person who is paid by a company to fill one or many positions successfully. So larger companies might have contracts with recruiting agencies when they have, difficult positions to fill, or it's a CEO, or even if it's just they need a recruiter because they don't have someone on staff, they'll hire someone to do that. They get paid when they get a hire, and you usually have to be there for 90 days before they get paid. So, they could represent many companies. They might not just work with one. In fact, they probably never do. To make money, they've got to be representing lots of different companies. Then we have the in-house corporate. This is the recruiter who's an employee of the company. They're hiring for, they only hire for one company. So that would be the person who reaches out to you to set up a phone screen, or, the first interview. They're usually your first contact with the company. And then there's a retained search. So these recruiters are retained by companies who pay an upfront fee for filling a specific job. So they get paid first. These are usually like, IT or any kind of industry that's quite hard to find talent, or upper level C-suite, CEO, COO. Those positions, are hard to fill. So they pay for someone to find someone for them, and they get a fee. Then there's a contract to hire. So this is when, they'll hire you as a temp, and hopefully you'll get they'll like you, you'll do well, and they'll transfer you to perm. But a contractor works for themselves or an agency. They don't work for the company. So when you get a contract job, you're not working for the company you're at. You're working for the agency or the recruiting agency. Okay. So if you've been looking for a long time, I know a lot of you need benefits, so you're hoping to get a full-time job with benefits. But if you need money or you just want to start working, that's sometimes a good option, okay, to do a contract. At least you have something on your resume. You don't have a huge gap, so it's something to think about. So again, who do recruiters work for? We talked about the different types of recruiters, but usually they're representing the companies, not you. Now, worked with a lot of different recruiters. I've had good luck. They've all been very nice people, and they did try to help me find a job, but they really are not representing you. They're representing their companies. So they're going to get paid by those companies. So that's their first loyalty. Recruiters are really looking for the best fit for the company. So again, that's their goal. They want to make sure that, you don't, if you don't work out, then it looks bad on them, so they want to make sure that you have the skills, abilities, competencies to be successful. Because, it's not a good feeling if you leave after 3 months, or the hiring manager is not happy with you, and then they have to go find someone else. And it also costs a lot of money to start the search again. Some recruiters may do some coaching with you, but again, we just keep reinforcing that they're not working for you. So if you get a good one, they will help you. They'll say, oh, this manager is very detailed, or this manager is looking for thus and such, and they should be doing that to, again, to get the best outcome for you and for them. But if you don't get that, just do the best you can. Ask lots of questions of them about the company. A lot of times they're not going to know much about the actual position. Sometimes I've heard them say, oh, you're going to have to talk to the hiring manager about that. They usually just do the first phone screen. And I'm talking more about people who work for that particular company. But, outside recruiters can do the same thing. Brianna, I'm going to have to answer some of these at the end, okay? So just remind me if I don't bring it up at the end of the class, okay? So why would a company use a recruiter? Well, it does cost a lot of money to have a full-time staff recruiter. So if they're low on funds, or, they're thinking, oh, well, we don't need to recruit that much, they'll just hire out. Sometimes staffing agencies are more effective. They take the vetting process out away from the managers, And that might be if the managers are fairly new or fairly green, that, the higher ups are not that confident in their decision making, or that they're going to hire someone really good, so they might say, okay, well, we're not mature enough of an organization yet, so let's use a recruiter for now. Like, let's hire someone from an agency versus giving someone a job who, we don't have anybody, or the managers aren't that savvy. In some industries like IT, high level executives, I mentioned this before, it's hard to find qualified employees. So, they're saying, well, we're going to get someone who's an expert in this. And then the other reason why is sometimes, like I talked about earlier, they'll bring on contractors or temp to perm, because once you get an employee and they pass their 90 days, it's difficult to terminate an employee. Usually, there's some risk of suits, or, you know, lawsuits, or, having it be very messy ending, and they don't want to go through that. So they might just do contracts or temps to perm. And I remember my dad said this when I was looking for a long time, like, you could have an interview and a couple, go back and forth, and they're really not coming up with an offer for you, and you could just offer. You could say, hey, how about you take me as a contractor, and let's see how it goes. And then there's nothing on either side. If it doesn't work out, you just leave. You don't get a severance. You don't, you just don't put it on your resume if it's only a couple months. But it's a good way for both of the, for the company and the person to have a win-win if it works out. And when you are a contractor or attempt to perm, work really hard, show them that you can do the work. And, sometimes it happens that they just, convert you to full time. Okay, I'm just reading a couple things. Good morning. I got an email for um yeah, WhatsApp is like something that you use for if you're outside of the country. I don't know if I would share anything like that. I've never heard of that before. Maybe just ask them what they need or what they want. 30 to 35%. So you have to pay more to have a full-time person than to just hire out as a recruiter. So, if you start needing a lot of different positions, then you're going to probably hire in a full-time recruiter, but it costs a lot more to pay a salary, benefits, and everything else than it might be initially to just hire a recruiter. Okay? Yeah, I don't know about that, Karen. I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, I wouldn't, we're going to talk about scams. I wouldn't give anybody too much, they'll have your email, they'll have your phone number. Don't give them too much information until you've worked with them for a while and you trust them. Because there are not great people out there. There's people that want to scam you, and you don't need that when you're looking for a job. So why should I use a recruiter? So, recruiters often have relationships and contacts inside the company. They've worked with the company for a while. They know the people. They'll talk to you. They'll give you, good insight. You're not going to get that if you're just applying cold through LinkedIn or Indeed. So I've always felt that it was very helpful to have someone helping me, even though I know they're not really, like, deep down it's for the company, but most of them were very lovely people, and they did try. And I had someone who called me several times and helped me get jobs. So once they find someone they like and they know who is successful, they might keep calling. Now, this was years ago, and I think the recruiting profession has changed. I mean, now they call it talent acquisition. It's very competitive. They make people work like, they used to work for maybe trying to fill 20 positions at once. Now it's like 30 or 50. They just, every job is way more complicated and busier than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago, as I'm sure you're aware of. Um, the other thing they can do is kind of sell your skills to a hiring manager. So they can say, like, oh, this person is great. Like, they have all this experience. I talked to them on the phone. I had a phone screen. they seem wonderful, they can give you a plug and that will help you. They're going to get your resume in front of the hiring manager. It's not one of hundreds needing to be reviewed. So their responsibility is to kind of pare through all the resumes that they get, including the ATS system, which, is looking for your keywords in your resume or in your cover letter. That's the first step, but then they might have 100 they have to go through or 50. So they've got to, wade through all those resumes. And if you are one that they like, you're going to the manager, and that's what you want to happen. They can talk to you about specific industry trends, accurate salaries. They most often are going to ask you what your range is or what you're looking for. Um, and you should do your research because they could quote you something that's way off. There's lots of websites for salaries, salary.com, glassdoor.com. You can even go on ONET, which is a good resource too. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. And the other thing is they can advise you about how to negotiate your salary. So they know these people and they're aware of what their personality is like, if they're going to play hardball with you, if the company is kind of cheap. They're not going to say cheap, but frugal. They're not going to give you a lot going in. I mean, you can always ask for a 6-month review if the pay is very low, but you like the job, you like the benefits. There's a lot of variables here. Okay, yeah, I'm not gonna read all of them outside because some of them I can't answer right now. So I'll just do the ones that are relevant to um, the rest of the participants. Okay. How to choose a recruiter. So you want to ask friends and colleagues about the recruiters they've worked with. So, again, this is part of your networking. If you're interested in working with a recruiter, start talking to your contacts. Which ones have you used, especially in your industry? There are specific recruiters for specific industries. You're going to have to do some research on that. I don't have names off the top of my head. I've worked with Beacon Hill Staffing. I thought they were good. Um, I used to work with Winter Wyman. I think it's Planet Professional or something like that. So, do your research. I was in HR. Those were some HR staffing agencies. But you need to, look into your industry to find the recruiters that represent your industry. Um, and then check to see, when you're looking at job ads, you'll see recruiters that have a lot of listings for your field. So they'll have want ads, or not want ads, sorry, job ads, and you'll see that name, and that's a good sign. Like that person is a good recruiter. They're getting a lot of work. They're getting a lot of companies that want them to represent them. The other thing is, sometimes recruiters have open positions that have not been released by the company. So you want to, if you see their name on a job ad, you need to work with them. You can't go right to the company because they're representing the company. So don't try to, get around it. That's not a good move. And we talked about the industry. And again, I think it's important. You can go to like an all-purpose recruiter. You can work with them, but if you have a very specific skill set, it might not be advantageous to just work with a general purpose recruiter. Come on, go. I want to go. So one of the things you can do to find recruiters is to use Google Maps, and you've probably used this for, as we have here, restaurants. So you just go to Google Maps, and in the search, you list your industry example. So if it's IT, you say IT recruiters near me. And then up comes a list of companies, addresses, links to their website, etc. And you can just follow these instructions to how to Google search. So this here is Boston recruiting firms and staffing agencies. You can click on this link and get a head start. And I forget to mention, if you're here for 30 minutes in the class, I'll mark you present as well as send you out the PowerPoint after class. So you'll get all of these slides. So, sometimes it's helpful to just do a search on Google, and try to find some recruiters. Maybe if you find some, you can vet them with people that you know in the industry, or people who are also job hunting. Have you worked with this one? Have you worked with that one? So like I said, you got to do your due diligence. The other thing you can use is ChatGPT or Gemini. AI is very hot right now. You could go into ChatGPT and write, could you give me names of recruiters in my industry in the Boston area? They'll give you a nice list. Same thing with Gemini. Gemini is a Google AI tool. And here's an article about, how to stay relevant in the job market. So I know a lot of people are using ChatGPT and Gemini for their job search. Just be careful if you're like asking them to write a resume for you or cover letter. Just make sure that you make it more your own. Excuse me one second. That it sounds like you, that it's a unique person, because recruiters can pick up if you've just totally copied and pasted from ChatGPT or any of the AI tools. It has to sound like you, or you're a unique person rather than just a robot. Okay. Oh, you're welcome. Someone just said thank you for the PowerPoint. So what do I need to do to prepare? So, once a recruiter calls you or you're having a conversation with a recruiter, you want to be able to tell them the location, the type of position, the type and size of company. If you don't want to work in Boston, tell them that. That doesn't mean they're going to send you Boston jobs. They're probably going to say, well, I know you said no Boston, but I thought this job was such a good fit. You can tell I've worked with a lot of recruiters. But, tell them, oh, I only want a 10 to 15-mile commute, or I need flexibility. Could you be looking for jobs that are remote or hybrid? Be specific, because then that helps them find stuff that will fit you. If you don't want to work for a great big company, say, no, I want to work for mid-size, or, a family-owned company, or, be, like I said, figure out what you're looking for and be able to tell them that. You can use more than one recruiter if you want, but I wouldn't use too many. And the reason is because it starts to get confusing. So you're going to have to stay organized and write down. Like, I used to keep a spreadsheet with all the positions I was pursuing. I would have, whether it was me on my own applying or I was using a recruiter. And the other thing is, sometimes they'll have, both of them will have the listing. It's almost like when you're looking for a house, you can have a couple realtors who are trying to sell that house. So same thing with recruiters. They can both call you um, with the job ad, and then they're going to ask you, well, has anybody else contacted you? And you're going to have to say yes, because they're going to get paid based on who gets the job. So, just be careful of that. And then, if they call you and they say they're going to get back to you and you don't hear from them in a week or so, call them back, or email them back and just say, "Hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. What's going on? Have you heard of any jobs?" The other thing is, think about where you want to work. Do a search on different companies that might have jobs for you, and mention those companies to them. Hey, do you have any of these companies as part of your um, associations or people that you work for? Make sure your LinkedIn account is up to date and your resume, because recruiters, that's all they do, is they're on LinkedIn all day long doing searches. So make sure it dovetails with your resume. You have a fairly recent picture. If you're 50, don't still have your 30-year-old picture up there. They're going to meet you. They're going to see you, so you can't hide. Um, and again, like I said, stay organized. Have a spreadsheet. When you start getting busy in the job hunt, you're going to need that. Okay. So we're just going to kind of go through the recruitment process. So step one is when they're going to list a position for the company. So they may list it on their own websites or multiple search engines. So most of the time, it's not just going to say on their website because they want to get it out there so people will respond. But you could, see if you can get ahead of the game. If you know what their website is, go to their website first and see if they have anything. And then if they say they do, then you can apply right there, or you can go right to the company and apply. If they haven't contacted you, don't feel bad about doing that. But usually they are going to list it both on their website. So what I mean by website is if they're an independent recruiter, it's their website, or if they work for a company, it's that company's website. Okay. Now this is a little low. I would say, depending on the position, it could be up to 1,000 resumes for an application. And half are deleted because job seekers did not tailor their resumes to the position. So you really need to look at that job ad and put the keywords, the key skills that you're seeing in that job ad. If you have those skills, you want to make sure they're in your resume exactly as they're written, because that's the whole thing with the ATS system, is that it's a robot. They're going through your resume. They're counting up those keywords and giving you a score. And if you get a high score, they're going to give you a call. The other thing is there's an elimination process used based on your resume, knowledge, skills, and abilities. So if you've been to some of my webinars or in-person classes, we talk about hard skills and soft skills. Anybody in the chat want to give me a definition of one or both of these? What's a hard skill first? What's a hard skill? What do we mean by we say hard skills? Excuse me, hard skills. Yeah, technical competency, exactly. Yeah, technical skills. Yeah. So it could be functional too. Like I was in training and development, so I needed to be able to design a program, to facilitate programs, to coordinate programs. So they're not that technical, but they're functional. Yeah. Okay. How about soft skills? Anybody know what soft skills are? Yep, good listener. That's a good example. People skills. Someone said interpersonal communication. That would be more of a soft skill. Yep, all of that. Okay, so it's basically, how do you behave in the workplace? How do you get along with people? Years ago, it didn't matter if you were a whiz technically and you were a jerk. They would keep you on usually because you were helping their business. Now they don't like that. That doesn't fly. So you have to have both. Okay. So they're usually going to contact and interview the top 3 to 10 candidates depending on the company's preference. So they'll decide on the best candidates and make sure there's a great fit. And again, they do this by phone screening. Some people tell me, "Oh, I had a phone screen, I never heard back." Well, that means you didn't make the cut. It just means that they didn't think it was going to be a good fit. So they're pretty, shrewd on this. They're not fooling around. And I know it hurts when you don't hear back, so I'm not minimizing it, but they just, if they don't think you're going to be a good fit, they move on. Okay. And so then once they have, 5 people or 7 people, usually not more than 5 initially, because it's a lot of time for the manager to take in interviewing everybody. So they're going to present that candidate to the company or to the hiring manager if they work in-house, and they're going to take over from there. So the recruiter, it depends on the company. If the recruiter is working in-house, they might have more to do with the hiring. But if it's outside recruiter, they don't have much to do. They're just hearing back whether they're going to hire that person or not, and whether they're going to get paid. Um, LinkedIn is a huge part of recruiters. Like I said earlier, they're on LinkedIn all day long. They have premium account. They can search till the day is long. And they're using it more and more. You're probably going to get emails from recruiters in your inbox, or excuse me, messages in LinkedIn, and I just mostly ignore them now. But when I was looking, sometimes I would answer them and say, yeah, I'm interested. They can do a keyword search, and you need to be a match. We talked about this. Make sure your account has lots of industry specific keywords in them. Like we talked about earlier, you're going to find them from job ads, but you also can go on LinkedIn and do a search on your profession. I would go online and on LinkedIn and look for a training and development specialist, and I just look at their profiles. And if I saw something that was fairly current, or it seemed to be a lot of people had those terms, I would put them in my LinkedIn profile. You want to get found. And then ask for from colleagues, managers for endorsements and recommendations. You can do that. Endorsements, they just have to go on your profile and endorse you, but for recommendations, you have to go onto your profile, and there's a section where you can ask for a recommendation. And that's really huge because, if you have recommendations for two or three or four of companies you've worked at, that says a lot about you. You want to follow organizations that you're applying to because they're going to see that when they look at your profile. And you can join groups in your specialty area. Like if you're in HR, IT, any of those, you can join groups and just participate in those groups. Post articles, post ideas, post that you're looking for a job, anything like that. Groups are found on your homepage on the left-hand side to the bottom. You'll see groups. But, the main thing is participate because you wanna be seen. Um, I'm not sure about that one. Heather's asking if I'll be speaking about LinkedIn emails from fake recruiters. I'm curious what they're trying to gain. Yeah, I don't have much information about that. Yeah, they're just scammers really. That's why they do that. So, but you gotta be careful of those people. Before you answer, if you've never heard of that company before, I would go on Google and make sure it's not. Just put in the company, is this a scam? You know, and it'll come right up. So these are just like if you find a recruiter that you think might like to work with, these are just some LinkedIn messages you could send to them. These are some examples. I'll let you read those, and you can use kind of this format if you want to. So I'll give you a second or a few seconds to read these, and then we can chat about it. Yeah, Wendy said that she's received text as well from recruiters. Yeah, that's a little intrusive. I don't know if I'd respond to that. I don't know how they would have gotten your number. Well, it's probably because it's on your resume. Yeah, that's why I'll say this is my opinion and you can take it or leave it, but I would not have my resume on LinkedIn. I don't think it's a good place for it. You should be very careful with your resume. Send it only when asked. That's your currency. That's you. You don't want your phone number, your address, where you live out in the internet, out on the in the cloud. Okay, so just be careful. All right, so what do you think about these messages? Do you think something like this would be helpful? I don't know if I say hi, Michael. I might say hi, whatever his last name is, Mr., because you don't know them. Just be a little more formal. But other than that, I think they're okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, make it sound like you, but you're just looking for information. You're interested in meeting with them, talking to them. So yeah, that's how you could contact someone. That's a recruiter if you're interested in working with them. Yeah, it does sound kind of casual. Did Michael ask for more info? Yeah, I mean, he's asking if he can send it, so he's not sending it right away. So, he is being a little bit cautious, but he does sound like, that's why I said I wouldn't say hi, Michael. Hi, Mister. And or how about I'd love to talk with you over the phone. Don't send your resume right away. Yeah, they are. The people are very informal. I don't always love that. It's because I'm of a certain age. I think you should be business professional until you get to know someone, but that's me. Okay, how to talk salary. So we have a number of classes on salary, so this is not going to go into it in the depth that you probably need, but we can talk about it for a little bit. So, you want to know your value. Do research on your position or your last position. You can use these following tools: ownetonline.org. You just put in your position and it's going to give you a range. Bureau of Labor Statistics, these are government websites. Glassdoor is another good one. There's the salary.com. I've heard that salary.com is usually a little high. So positions in the Massachusetts, New England area, the pay is going to be a little bit higher than the average around the country, but we need that money because it's so expensive to live here. So, they might ask you what your last salary was. They're not supposed to do that. It's against the law now in Massachusetts. Just say, ask them. The thing that I would always recommend is to go back to them and say, could you tell me a little bit about the range for this position? Don't answer right off the bat. And the other thing is when you go into a job interview, know how low you can go. Don't give them the lowest number. That's not a good idea. You want to get what you deserve, but if you've been out of work for a long time, you might have to take a pay cut. It's just the truth. If it's been 6 months and you really need a job, you're probably going to have to take a pay cut. But what I'm saying is when you start talking with them, you don't want to go with that low number right off the bat. And then, once the offer is given, if they offer you something and you've said that that's in the range, you can't change your mind. You kind of have to go with what they've given you. And also remember that the salary is just one part of the job. If they're giving you a bonus if you make your goals through the year, if they're giving you extra vacation, if you get, we don't really get stocks anymore, but maybe stock options, company car, what else can you ask for? Maybe you say, oh, can I have a 6-month review? This salary is a little low. Could that be part of my package? And again, have some room for negotiation and never give your lowest number. Um, if they ask you for your last salary, just say, I don't think that's an appropriate question for an interview. That's all. I would just say that. I wouldn't say, it's illegal. What are you doing? Just say, I don't think that's an appropriate question in an interview. Okay. Or if you really don't want to address it, just say, could you tell me the range of this position? So let's get into the tips for working with recruiters. So so this is important. So when the recruiter says they're going to send your resume, they need to let you know. They can't just send out your resume without telling you. Okay, if they do that, that's a red flag. Okay, because again, this is you. This is your real estate. This is what's your career, and they have to be careful with that. Try to find someone who can represent your field specifically. And like we talked about earlier, know what you want in the job, what your duties, if you say, oh, I don't want to design training programs, be very specific because they're going to come back and give you one that asks you to do that. And you're going to have to say no, because did you remember? I don't do that. I don't like that. So push back. Don't let them drive it. You need to drive it. And then, yeah, you can interview the recruiter. They should be able to tell you, how many people have they placed. I think that's fine to do. And again, make sure that online presence is up to date, whether it's on LinkedIn, if you do a blog, if you're on Facebook or Twitter, formerly X, which is now X. Again, you don't want old stuff up there. So update it. If you should be updating it if you're in a job search. And then just be open and honest. they might ask you, why is there a break in the dates? You can tell them, which it's a little easier, I think, with a recruiter. You might just say, hey, I was in the job for a few months. It wasn't a good fit and we decided to part ways. That's it. That's all you have to say. If it's a couple years, maybe you took some time off to take care of your children or an elderly parent, you can, if you feel comfortable sharing that with them, you can. You could also say, I had some family issues that I had to take care of, but I'm ready to work now and I'm excited about this opportunity. Okay, sometimes people are kind of nosy, so don't feel like you have to tell them your whole life story. Just tell them what they need to know. And then, nobody likes to be ghosted in the job hunt, so don't you ghost them either. Like when they email you or call you, call them back. So you want to have a good relationship with a recruiter. They can do a lot for you. They can help you get a job. So make sure that you're polite, professional, and you get back to them. Um, and follow up with them. Like I said earlier, if they don't call you for a couple weeks, call them or email them. Maybe give them some referrals. Sometimes they're asking for referrals to say, well, if you're not interested in this job, if you know anybody who is, could you let me know? They're looking for talent. And if you help them, maybe they'll be more inclined to help you again. And I talked about using more than one recruiter, but not too many. And when you get a job, let them know because, you don't want them to keep calling you and they're going to be happy for you, even if they didn't place you. And again, maintain the relationship. Like I said earlier, I had someone I work with 2 or 3 times to get a job. So keep up the relationship because you never know when you might need another job or maybe your children or somebody needs a job and you send them to them. So, it is a business. So these are just some tips when you're feeling like, I'm not too sure about this. So if you write to them, call them, and they don't respond, let it go. There's lots of other people you can work with. The whole thing about notifying you before they send out your resume. If you ask them and they say no, not going to be a good fit for you. If they don't ask you lots of questions about your skills, your goals, your ideal workplace, walk away. So these are some warning signs that maybe they're not who they say they are. So this is why this is a good course to take because you get some insight into the whole industry. You can check out their reputation. If you don't feel that this person is on the up and up, do a search. Go on Google, you can go on Yelp, LinkedIn and see what you find. And if you don't find a website, then they're scammers. If you decide to stop working with a recruiter, just let them know that you're not going to be working with them anymore, and it's really just to avoid conflicts in the future. So we have a list of resources for you to check on after the class. We use a lot of these websites to put together our classes. One of the ones we like a lot is the Muse. This is about 4 truths about working with recruiters that they'll never tell you. We also have the best staffing companies from Forbes. And then things employer job interviews will never tell you. So it's just some kind of inside scoop on recruiters in the recruiting industry. And then I think this is a repeat, but 4 ways to make a recruiter fight for you. Email templates to respond to recruiters no matter where you are in your search, and reasons to use a recruiter. So I always think you want to be doing all you can to try to get a job. So I think recruiters are a good avenue. I would not count on them for everything, but I think it's not a bad idea to engage one if you can. Um, and then you're going to be looking for jobs online. You can apply right to the company. A lot of what we recommend is to, look for those companies, do research on companies that you think you might like to work at, and try to find contacts in that company that you can, network with and that could let you know when there's an opening. Don't just rely on the job boards. That's going to take a long time. So I also want to, tell you that we have webinars almost every day. We also do workshops in-house in Woburn and Cambridge. Usually, I do workshops twice a month in Woburn on Wednesday afternoons from 2 to 3:30. So you can go to our website and see what we have coming up for April. I talked about the YouTube channel. I'm going to try to upload this class after this is over. And that's our YouTube channel. We probably have about 40 to 50 classes that we've recorded, and you can watch them if they're not coming up anytime soon in terms of a class. And this just tells you how to register our events, our upcoming workshops, and then they give you the online event instructions. So I want to thank you for coming. These are our contact information, who to call at each of our centers. We have a new Malden Center that opened in January, and they're open. They're going to start, we're all going to be open 4 days a week now, starting next week. So Cambridge is going to be open Monday through Thursday. Woburn is Tuesday through Friday. I don't remember Chelsea. I think they're both Tuesday to Friday too. They're smaller centers. So it's 8:30 to 4:30 in all of our centers. So there's one more day you can come into the center if you're interested. All right. I'm just going to look to see if there's other chats that I didn't answer. Oh, you're very welcome, guys. Yeah, and like I said, if you're here for 30 minutes or more, I'll send you the presentation. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Brianna. Yeah, so Brianna's asking, how do you break into contracting or consulting? I mean, I think a good step is to try to work with recruiters first. And I'm not sure, but there might be some that focus on that. I think that Robert Half Associates, I'm pretty sure they're accounting, but that's an example of one that I think does temp work or contracting work. In terms of consulting, I don't really know that. That's really specific to your industry. Sometimes they do put jobs out on Indeed and LinkedIn and other websites for consultants. But I am not aware of how you find consulting work. Thanks, Brendan. Brendan is our other workshop facilitator in Malden, Monday through Thursday. Thank you. If I said it wrong, sorry. You're very welcome. Yeah, I liked Beacon Hill. Someone asked, is Beacon Hill good? I liked Beacon Hill staffing. I never got a job from them, but they were nice people. And they have a lot of good content, a lot of good companies they represent. You're welcome. Brianna, the other thing I would say if you're still there is, try to network with people who are consultants and ask them about how they get jobs. A lot of times it's word of mouth. Like if you have a good reputation and you have some specific skills that people want and need, you've got to somehow get a reputation out there before you're going to get consulting work, I believe. Oh, that's good. Thanks, Cheryl. Cheryl said Monument staffing is great for admins. You're welcome. Randstad, I don't know much about Randstad. I know it's huge. I know it's a big company. Someone's asking me an opinion on Randstad. I don't know much about it though. I know it's really big. Yeah, Sabrina said, I assume a recruiter texting me is spam. I wouldn't respond to a text. They should just email you or call you. I wouldn't respond to a text. Okay, someone said, if you're, I hope people are here for this. A lot of employment related scams request WhatsApp contact info, your phone number, because they're located outside the US. It's a very common scam by text messaging. Yeah, so all the more reason not to respond to a text. Okay, I think I'm gonna see the rest. Yeah, I know. Chat is not available for the group. Yeah. Oh, someone said they work. Oh, someone said Randstad is excellent, one of the biggest worldwide. And someone else said they've worked with Aerotech in the past for placement in biotech. They are okay. Um, do you mean Heather? Do you mean Aerotech? They do offer some benefits. um, Someone asked what agencies will actually find permanent positions. I don't know. I don't know. They do a mix. They do temp to perm, they do contracting, they do permanent positions, but I can't tell you which ones are going to actually find you permanent positions. You just have to work with people, get some recommendations, talk to people who are looking for jobs that have used recruiting agencies. I don't know what the Signal app is, so oh, is that oh yeah, I don't want to get into politics. I don't know what that is, but I wouldn't do it. Oh, that's great. So Heather just said she was able to get health insurance through Aerotech. And was that for a contract or temp position? Oh, temp to perm. Oh, well, so when you went to perm, you probably got the benefits, right? Not for temp. Yeah, we don't put the chat on for all of you to see because it's again the privacy thing, and sometimes people don't want other people to see their chats, so we don't keep it on. I'm the only one who sees them, but I do read them out if I can. Okay, Signal is a chat app. Thank you. Randstad offers health, life, dental for contract employees. Oh, that's a good tip. Okay, so Heather said she got benefits via Aerotech for temp, then switched to company benefits when went perm. Oh, that's good. Very nice. Yeah, so there are some that will give you benefits. They're probably not like a full slate, but maybe health insurance, which is most of the time what you really need. All right, guys. Well, I can stay on for a few minutes if you have more questions, but otherwise, have a great weekend, and I will send out the PowerPoint after this class. You're welcome. You're very welcome. Oh, you're welcome, Donald. That's nice of you to say. I'm glad it was helpful. Yep, you'll get it. I just got to do a couple things and I'll send it out, the PowerPoint. You're welcome. You have a good day too. Everybody have a nice weekend. It's supposed to rain, but maybe it won't. All right, I'm gonna say goodbye. Thank you again. Have a great weekend, and we'll hope to see you soon. Bye now.